Hello everyone, how you all doing? Welcome to another video. So we're gonna talk about the update 4.1 of Vainglory. The release changes just came out. There are some skins and blah blah blah. Let's take a look at what changes in the actual hero changes. There's some minor changes to the meta crystal on or the vein crystal on the 5 versus 5 meta. The halcyon missiles are going to start doing more damage. Also, they are going to start piercing your armor and shield. The same thing for the stun that also happens. Will also start piercing the shield. So both of them will start doing more damage. This will probably signify that if you are trying to finish up the game, you need to be more careful with the vein crystal defenses. They're going to start hurting a little bit more. About the heroes themselves, Baron supposedly got a nerf, not a very big nerf. His primary basic attack of rocket launcher was decreased on the percentage of extra basic attack damage that it had, but only 10%, so it's not that much. And the jump jets got a small cooldown reduction early game, but then increasing on the late game. You can see here from 12 to 14. So it helps you in the very first level of the jump jets to be a little bit more oppressive, which was one of the downsides to Baron on the first levels. He felt like the jump jets were a bit useless. But now you will have them more often. But on the late game, you will see that you will have 2 ticks of time slower to take that time. And also the recovery that you get when you do a basic attack, your cooldown drops from the jump jets, and it will take longer apparently for you to do so. It won't recover as much from 50%, it dropped to 10%. So a little bit of a nerf to Baron. Not extremely a lot. I mean, if you still have them on 4 items on late game, you will still be able to do a lot of damage. So it's not that big of a nerf, but it's still a nerf. And people who don't know how to play Baron very well, they will definitely feel it. Grumpjaw also was rumored to be nerfed. Let's take a look at what they did to them. The slow duration on his Grumpy has been reduced. Well, if you maximize it, it's pretty much the same, but the first levels is not the same. Now it scales up as more as you put it. So if you want to apply more slow, you have to do 1, 2, 3 levels, 4 levels, 5 levels. Usually it's worth maximizing your A in Grumpjaw, in my humble opinion, so it might be still worth doing this, but we'll see. Hangry, now it has an increased attack speed early on, but decreasing as if you maximize it. So if you do know your B on a Grumpjaw, whenever you land the B, you get an attack speed increase. You start hitting faster your enemies. So what this will do was that it will be, on the first levels that you have it will be faster. And on the final levels, it will be slower. So overall, it's a nerf if you maximize the B. But on the first levels, you should notice that you are still very oppressive with Grumpjaw, which is good for the early game. And the main usage for Grumpjaw right now would be to have them in lane and just be oppressive like hell, especially on the top lane. This is my main use for Grumpjaw, at least. You can also play him in the jungle, of course, but so yeah, I think it's a very small nerf. Won't really affect him that much. He will still be very much oppressive. Especially if you consider on the late game, Grumpjaw is a bit of a dud. I mean, 1 versus 1, he still feels strong, but usually on the late game, you're more oriented on team fights, not 1 versus 1. So it doesn't really matter if you slow down or if you're not attacking as fast. But yeah, that's just my opinion. Anyway, let's move on because we have a lot of changes to go over. Gwen. Her proc damage was increased on early levels, but then decreased on later levels. So overall, it's, I think, a nerf, I guess. She will be doing some good damage early on, but then it will decay as the game progresses. Ace's high cooldown got increased overall. So yeah, a little bit of a nerf to Gwen. Still might be viable, not need to compare with the other heroes and the changes on the other heroes, but yeah, Gwen is still pretty decent. Idris, Heresy got a buff. Let's see if that is true. The barrier on his Shroud Step increased considerably early on. It remains the same late game. And then the barrier duration also increased. Okay, so it gets more barrier. That's not really much of a buff, but it is a buff, so Idris was buffed. Confirms. Joule, she's being so OP right now. Let's see the changes that they did to her. Energy cost increased for the Thunder Strike. So you'll be able to do less Thunder Strikes, or you'll be forced to buy some Halcyon boots to make sure you can keep randomly throwing Thunder Strikes around. I think it's okay. I think Joule will still be strong. Need to actually play some games to see if the energy cost really gets to you, or if you can get away with just buying a couple of batteries early game and then Alcyon chargers maybe. Kensei, he got pretty decent buff. His damage increased early on. His Lotus Strike weapon ratio also increased, and his cooldown reduced. So you'll see a lot more Lotus Strike happening on Kensei. And Kensho was also increased. So they nerfed Kensei by motives that were a bit unsure. I mean, I understand why he got nerfed, because he was so OP when he first got released. Then they let him become OP for those couple of patches, and then suddenly he got this huge nerf, and then no one was playing Kensei anymore whatsoever. And now they're bumping him back again and hoping that someone will pick him up again. He was already buffed up on previous updates, so now he will definitely be quite strong and worth checking out, especially if you liked playing Kensei back when he was quite good. So this might see a return of Kensei to the bot lane or the jungle. We'll have to see. Kestrel, she was already so strong. What did they do to her? They increased her health, as if she needed that. They increased her movement speed, as if she needed that. And now the active camo costs less, and the one-shot, one-kill costs also less. So yeah, a buff to Kestrel. I hate you, SEMC. I hate Kestrel. I hate this buff. Kinetic. The charged pulse went... You do more damage now. Okay, I guess that's good. Weapon ratio also increased, and crystal ratio also increased. So charged pulse, I believe that it's her ultimate, and it's just doing more damage. I think this is good because it felt a bit of a useless ultimate on Kinetic, and now it will finally start doing some proper damage, regardless if you're playing her CP or not. The weapon ratio increase will make sure that it's, you know, doing some actual weapon damage as well, which would be nice to finish people off like Ringo has his ultimate. So Lance. Lance got a small nerf. His Impale got reduced on the weapon damage. His Scythian Wall also got slightly reduced, so it does less damage on both. The passive damage reduction was flatlined to a 20%. And the active damage reduction was flatlined to a 60%, which was the maximum. So this is why they say it's a remodel and not a complete nerf. But yeah, overall, it feels like a nerf. I mean, you can be more defensive. You will be able to use him more as that support role kind of hero. But overall, in terms of weapon, I don't know why they bothered to increase weapon damage on Lance over and over and over again. And now they're nerfing it right back. So it feels like you're going back and forth. Well, I hope they do the same with Arden. I mean, they nerfed him so much. At least those hits, whenever you do a basic attack, lowering the cooldown should be reinstated on Arden, in my humble opinion. But they don't seem to have made any Arden changes at all this update. Well, Magnus was quite OP, so I guess he deserves some sort of nerf, and this goes along with it. But he will still be very strong, I believe. So we'll have to see. Magnus definitely needed a nerf. He was one of the highest mage heroes on the mid. Mystic Missile, I believe it's his A. reduced very slightly. You won't really feel it. The chrono driver range was increased. The stun duration increased. So that's actually a buff on this chrono driver. And the Seraphic Flare, this one got a nerf. It was reduced, especially late game. On mid game, you don't really notice the changes, but if you plan to maximize it, you will see that it's not really as worth maximizing as it used to be. It's 50 less damage. And the crystal ratio also decreased. So they don't really want to make the ultimate always maximizable, always be worth maximizing. They want you to consider also maximizing the A and B more often, I guess. Or both. Petal. Let's see if she finally is back. Bramble Boom Seeds. The cooldown is less. The energy cost is a flatline 60. So that's good. Minions spawn more quickly. Okay, but the problem with Petal was not the minions not spawning fast enough. Trampoline. The bonus attack range is flatline to the possible maximum. 1.2. That's it. That's what you're doing to fix Petal. That's not gonna fix Petal. She's still gonna be useless on 5 versus 5, pretty much. Petal only has some, in my opinion at least, only has some very specific usages on 3 versus 3 when you're up against an enemy jungler that is specific melee, and even then you need to have the upper end early on. Otherwise, you're pretty much screwed. It's great against the Kroll, it's great against Glaive, those kind of melee heroes that want to get in your face, and your Bubble Boom Seeds being laying around, acting like a minefield, will prevent them from engaging upon you and giving you that safe distance that you can work to do your magic as a Petal. Right now she's still totally squishy, totally useless on 5 versus 5. I don't think she's gonna be played. That's unfortunate. I was hoping they would put Petal back in the meta, but apparently no. Ringo got some changes to his Hellfire Brew and the buff overall, it seems. It does more damage. Damage per second duration is less, so you only have 4 seconds duration instead of... Oh no, it's the damage per second duration is lower, so the damage is lower, not the time that it is applied. And the crystal ratio was increased, so CP Ringo will be buffed up, and Weapon Ringo will also be buffed up, so overall buff for Ringo, especially on his ultimate. Rona got a big change as well. Her self-slow is not as strong, so she can actually move a bit more, which will be very important to keep the red mist on top of your enemy. Will this be enough to get Rona back into the meta though? Probably not. Probably not, but we shall see. Samuel, Corrupted Genius, I believe this is his passive. The empowered attack heal will be from 20 to 100 to 10 to 120, so a nerf. You will heal less, so if you want to have a Samuel that sustains himself, you will be forced to buy Eve of Harvest like everyone else instead of relying on his passive, which is a big shame, in my humble opinion. They're ruining what makes Samuel Samuel, but whatever. Drifting Dark, damage per second decreased as well. So pretty strong nerf on Samuel. Pretty strong nerf on Samuel. And I don't see any changes to Varya and Celeste or Scarf. So just making sure that Samuel is not an S tier hero anymore. It's gonna be third, fourth, fifth pick for that mid. Which is a shame. I mean, he was pretty good to have early game oppression on your opponent mid. And with these changes, he might not be able to have that sustain that he required to put that pressure. I especially think that the Drifting Dark is way too nerf. Like from 100 to 60. That's a lot. That's a lot. So yeah, you won't be able to. I mean, Drifting Dark wasn't doing that much damage to begin with. It was only like tickling your toes, but now it does even less, so it's pretty close to not even being worth doing any damage. Anyways, Skye, the forward barrage on Skye has increased the weapon ratio and increased the crystal ratio. Very small increase on the crystal ratio, but okay, forward barrage has a buff. I guess that's alright. Skye will still be strong, now she will be stronger. Silvernail also got a buff. The cooldown was reduced to the flatline 8, so you don't need to maximize it to have full use of your stake. And the tripwire duration was increased as well throughout the whole thing, from the beginning to the late game. Okay, so a buff for Silvernail. Don't really think he needed it, but okay. Varya, Anvil's Hammer, passive attack speed lowered. Very small nerf, not really that significant. Anvil's Hammer is the ultimate, and I guess it's just the speed on which the lightnings fall down. You will have more time to dodge them, I guess, which is okay. It's not that significant, so it should be fine. Vox, Julia's Song gets an increase in the crystal ratio. They buffed it, and now they're increasing it back. And Wait For It has an even bigger crystal ratio burst damage than it already had. They had introduced the quite substantial burst damage on the Wait For It of Vox. They wanted more people to play CP Vox, but apparently people weren't picking up CP Vox, so they did another buff for it. So CP Vox definitely might be more viable now. So yeah, those were the changes. No more here. No more news down here. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think on the comments below. These are some interesting changes. Not very intense. I was expecting some more hard changes, but apparently just small, minor twerks. Except for Samuel. I think Samuel was the main gutted character here from all of this listed heroes. So yeah, let me know what you guys think on the comments below. Don't want to keep this video too long, so bye bye for now. Take care.